Story 1: The Frozen Visitor. Ethan and Mark were experienced winter campers. They had been doing it for years, pushing themselves further into the deep, snow-covered wilderness each time. That year, they chose a secluded spot in the Canadian Rockies, miles from the nearest road. The first night was peaceful. The second, however, something changed. It started with the footprints. Ethan spotted them in the snow just outside their tent. Large, bare footprints, not boots, not shoes. Human, but impossibly big. They led from the dense trees directly to their tent and stopped. No return tracks. Mark dismissed it. Snow probably covered them. Maybe an animal. But that night, something scratched the tent. A long, deliberate scrape against the fabric, like a single fingernail dragging across it. When Ethan unzipped the flap and shone his flashlight outside, nothing was there. Only silence, and the feeling that something was watching. The next night, they heard it breathing. A deep, rattling inhale, just beyond the fire's glow. Neither man spoke. The wind had died, the fire crackled, and the breathing came closer. Then, a whisper, low and ragged, like a voice carried from the bottom of a frozen well. "Let me in." They bolted for their truck at dawn, leaving their gear behind. When they returned with park rangers, everything was untouched, except for a single set of prints leading from where they had slept deep into the trees, vanishing into the untouched snow. Story 2: The Man in the Snow. Lena and her brother Kevin had always been adventurous. They grew up hiking, camping, and braving the winter wilderness of Montana. But this time, they weren't alone. On the first night, Kevin woke up to a soft crunching sound outside their tent. He figured it was a deer, maybe a fox, until he heard the breathing. Slow, measured, human. He nudged Lena awake, whispering, "Someone's out there." She listened. The breathing was just outside the tent. Then came the slow, deliberate sound of a zipper. Kevin grabbed his knife and unzipped the tent in one swift motion, aiming his flashlight outside. Nothing, just untouched snow and their own footprints leading up to the tent. But Kevin swore he had heard something move away. The next morning, they found fresh footprints around their camp, circling it. A single set, barefoot, the toes slightly dragging in the snow, as if the person was limping. The following night, they built a bigger fire and kept watch. Around midnight, Lena caught movement just at the tree line. A figure, tall, thin, naked despite the cold, stood between the trees, watching. "Hey!" Kevin shouted, standing up. But the man didn't move. He just grinned, his teeth unnaturally white in the darkness. Then he turned and walked away, fading into the woods. They packed up and left at dawn. 2 weeks later, a hunter was found frozen to death near the same site. His body was discovered standing, rigid in the snow, his mouth stretched into a grotesque grin. Story 3: The Ice Fisherman's Warning. Jack and his father, Tom, were ice fishing on Lake Superior, something they had done every winter since Jack was a boy. This year, they went deeper onto the ice than ever before, hoping for bigger fish. An old man at the bait shop had warned them, "Watch for the cracks, and if you hear someone whisper your name, don't answer." They laughed it off. The first day was good, clear skies, plenty of fish. That night, in their ice tent, Jack woke to his father shaking him. "Did you hear that?" Jack listened. A voice, distant but distinct, whispering his name. "Jack?" It drifted across the frozen lake, hollow and stretched, like wind through a tunnel. Jack peered out, his breath fogging in the frigid air. In the distance, a figure crouched on the ice near a fishing hole. A man, at least it looked like a man dressed in old, tattered clothes. He wasn't fishing. He was watching them. Jack turned to wake his father, but when he looked back, the man was closer. "We need to go," Tom whispered. They packed up as fast as they could, but the ice cracked beneath their feet. The whisper came again, louder, more insistent. "Jack?" They ran for their truck, leaving everything behind. As they drove off, Jack stole one last glance in the rearview mirror. The figure stood in the distance, still watching, still whispering his name, even as the wind drowned out his voice. They never went back to that lake again.